Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we have a returning guest back to the Horror Realm. He's an author, and he has the book out right now that's called Predator, The Leader of Fear. I have with us Richard Weber. Richard, welcome back to the Horror Realm.
Well, thank you very much. I've been following your interviews, well, as much as I can. You're doing so many of them, I can't keep track.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the support.
So we're going to talk horror because all my novels have some horror. Horror and occult just creeps in there anyway. But the main subject we're going to do is the Necronomicon by H.P. Lovecraft. But then I also want to discuss Simon's Necronomicon, the one you find on every bookshelf still in every bookstore of the country. And that these, I think it came out in the 70s. You know, high school kids had them. It was cool and everybody. But I got to explain the danger of the book, too. So anyway, if you put the slide up with my novels there.
Okay, let's go.
There we go. This is the latest one, like I said. So it's mainly a noir action-adventure spy thriller because you've got an ex-CIA agent who teams up with a portly, eccentric MI6 agent who's a psychic, and he's an adept at magic and the occult and everything. And the main thing is they're trying to save these girls from Epstein-like sex ring. You know, the same scenario that Epstein actually used. But to add excitement in the end, I had them battle a satanic cult. I don't want to say too much, but let's just say on the island.
Oh.
Yeah, and so Carswell is battling the satanic cult during their Black Mass, while my hero, Richard Chance, and a group of his private agents from the International Intelligence Agency he runs are coming in helicopters storming the island. But they had, of course, no idea that he was at Black Mass being held by a ex-Samoan wrestler underground. We remember that Epstein had that little dome chapel?
Yeah.
Well, my take is that there's a cavern underneath it, and that's where they make this chapel out of. So it's a lot of, it's only 3 pages long chapters. It just goes right down the highway. And it's got a lot of humor because his sidekicks, Bernie, who's a Brooklyn Jew. So, he talks like, hey, forget about it, whatever, I don't know, I'll keep my big schnoz out of everything. So anyway, can you click to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I have 3 others. The Vonage Project is also kind of like James Rollins' books, where he brings in, he has this Omega Force, But in mine, the thing is that these kids are born with special powers. It's kind of a trope. I mean, King has used it, and everybody's used it now. And some black nefarious group wants to capture the kids for their powers, right? But the twist in mine is that there's a female archaeologist who we later find out is a Celtic high priestess of the, I think it's the Daughters of Awen. So I had to do a lot of research on Celtic things too. And this ex-Nazi arms dealer guy who's, well, he should be too old even functioning, but there's something mysterious about him because he was injured in a lab experiment and he's wearing kind of a prosthetic face. But then comes in the alchemy. So what he did, he got a hold of, gotta have to go with the premise. He got a hold of Jung's Red Book, right? And he's using that and the Vonage manuscript, which of course everybody knows still hasn't even been broken by the CIA or NSA. Nobody can really break the code. And he's going to use those 2 things to open this portal to the Fountain of Youth. And then we have Solomon's Key, which is kind of like a Dan Brown thing, where a sexy, beautiful, intelligent Mossad agent, Josie, teams up with Rossi, who's a Italian. Well, in Europe, Secret Service doesn't mean what it does here. It means the CIA, right? Secret Intelligence Service, right? And they are, it's kind of a false flag thing. It's kind of like Dan Brown did with Angels and Demons, where you think it's the Illuminati and it's not the Illuminati at all, right? And they're using false flag terrorism to wreak havoc in Rome. And they're, well, it's called the Eschatology Institute. I was going to use Scientology, but they sue everybody over everything. It's hats. I don't want to go there. Oh, hell no. So anyway, they're trying to bring down the Pope and the Rome and the whole Catholic Church under the guise of being the Templars seeking revenge for all the burning at the stake and torture that was put upon them. And then the third one is an anthology of horror I'm proud of, because I had Ramsey Campbell contribute, and F. Pulse Wilson, Tim Lieben, a lot of, you know, those are the big guys, you know. And then Mort Castle, I think his name, he wrote the foreword. And I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
He said that horrors, some people say horror novels and movies are what's the word? Got a brain fart. Catharsis. It releases our fears and we get it over in a movie where we know we can't be harmed. But he said, no, horror is more subtle than that. It's like you sprained your ankle a year ago. And now every time you go to put on your shoes and socks, you get a shooting pain in your leg. That's horror, he says, because it won't go away. Okay. Now, I got a little movie I want to show from The Devil's Ride Out, which was a Hammer film, and it starred Christopher Lee and Charles Gray. Remember, he was the narrator for what am I thinking of? Rocky Mountain Horror Picture Show. When he says, take a step to the right, take a step to the left, right? Yeah. But this is the first and only major film that Christopher Lee did where he actually played the hero, Count Richelieu, who's battling evil instead of being the head of the evil thing, you know? I think some of the anthology things he did with Peter Cushing, he was kind of a good guy, but in this one, he's absolutely the hero of the story. So this is a scene where, well, it's really based on Crowley, because Dennis Whitley wrote these books that were just bestsellers right back then. And it was The Devil Rides Out and To the Devil a Daughter, which they also made into a movie. But in that one, Christopher was the satanic priest and Richard Widmark was the hero. That was bad casting. I just can't see Richard Widmark as the hero because he... remember, he's the one who pushed the lady down the stairs and said, he's more of a, you know, rough, tough guy than a novelist, you know. So anyway, what happens is their best friend, and there's this other guy, I can't remember, Rex, is Richelieu's friend, and he's like a Indiana Jones type guy. And he tells Richelieu that this best friend is missing. He can't, what's going on? He can't get a hold of him. He goes to the door. They won't let him in of his mansion and all this. So they find out that he's got sucked up in this satanic cult, you know, which is based kind of on Crowley, even though it wasn't a satanic cult. And this is the scene where they've captured the little girl and they're going to sacrifice her on the altar. But Richelieu comes with the mother and Rex and intervenes. So if you want to play that clip.
Okay, and that's clip 4, correct?
Yeah,
Set, Father of darkness, King of death, I pledge this knife to thee, to do thy work and be thy servant.
Those are words you said before. Say them again.
And the blood of this child shall be...
I cannot. You must.
The end is known, not even to
My baby's going to die if you don't.
Mother.
You must speak those words again.
The bride of chaos.
The bride of chaos.
The rider upon the beast.
The rider upon the beast.
With this knife do I draw out the blood which is thy life.
Only they who love without desire shall have power granted them in the darkest hour. Peggy, get up. Repeat after me the words of the Susama ritual. Uriel Seraphim.
Uriel Seraphim.
Io Potesta.
Io Potesta.
Zati Zata.
Zati Zata.
Galatim Galata.
Galatim Galata.
Wow.
Yeah. You never saw that movie? Devil Rides Out?
I have not. I have not.
It's really good. Yeah. I mean, Christopher Lee he steals every scene, but Charles Gray is his match, you know. Well, remember he played Blofeld in one of the Bond movies, too.
He did.
With the cat. Yeah. He's a great actor.
And now, Richard, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With a lot of your work, you like to focus on, where you like, talking about cults, religious groups, conspiracies. Right. What do you feel about organized religion? Organized religion.
You really want the truth?
I want the real truth, yes.
I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic high school, but I mean, there was a girl in like her senior class. She would ask the priest, well, what does it mean to say a Hail Mary or Our Father? I don't get it. His answer was, oh, my child, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we went through. I'm not bashing the school. They always used to say, well, if you don't like it here, you can get out that front door because it's private, But we couldn't wear blue jeans and we had to wear a tie no matter what else we were wearing every day. But, the pedophile thing really turned me off, and that they hid it, and they kind of did what the FBI did. They used to call putting on the bicycle with a problem agent. They did that with the priests. They just, even though they knew they were pedophiles, they'd send them to another parish and another parish, And let me grab a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Neil deGrasse Tyson because he's an atheist, but science is kind of his God. He said, if you can show me, and when I die, I see something, okay, but otherwise I think I'm just going to be dead. But the way I look at it is this, okay, we're in the Milky Way galaxy, right? Do you know how many billion stars are in just our galaxy? Suns, in other words?
A lot.
1 to 400 billion stars just in our galaxy, okay? And then there's 100 billion to 2 trillion galaxies in the universe. So this ethnocentric feeling we have that God sent his only son to our little rock in the universe to save all of mankind just seems ludicrous to me, I mean, I guess I'm in Jung's camp, that if you want to believe that and it makes you feel safe and good, right? Okay. But don't become fanatical about it. Don't push it onto other people, what your beliefs are. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm an agnostic, not an atheist. I still want to believe in some supernatural things that happen. And, my life's had up and downs, but I've never really hit the bottom. And I kind of feel like God or something's pulled me up by the bootstraps. And that makes me feel better. That's my answer.
Do you feel like cults and organized religion, do you think they have similar characteristics or traits?
Well, yeah, like I said in the interview I did with Aeon Bite with Miguel Connor on top of the Necronomicon, I explained that, well, I'll quote Aleister Crowley again, to start a new religion or belief system, you have to have a charismatic leader. So they had Elena Blavatsky, right? They had Rudolf Steiner. The Freemasons are always talking about Solomon and King Solomon, Solomon's temple. And Christians were talking about Jesus and the Bible. You know, the dynamic fits perfectly, you know, no matter what religion or belief system you're in. And now we have a cult with Mr. Trump, you know. Well, you know, I think it was Maslow said that a very small percentage of the world's population are leaders. Most want to be followers, and they don't want to think for themselves. They just want to have somebody tell them what to do and then feel safe and happy. But, you know, Ron Mahlutaket had a good one. He does these things. He's kind of like with the OTO, but he's an old hippie and was actually a recording artist. He said, well, I've come to realize that there's only a very handful of us out there that are open-minded, somewhat intelligent, willing to explore, learn new things, and always seek knowledge. But the other half is stupider than a dumb rock. And they're growing exponentially, and we're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So, I mean, cults have been around forever because there's followers, you know? And you get somebody like David Koresh, even down in Waco. You know, those people were just blind followers, that's all. And then what happens with these groups is the number 2 guy gets in a quarrel with the number 1 guy, and he breaks off and starts his own group, you know?
Yeah.
That happened like with Theosophy, you know. Rudolf Steiner went off and made anthrophilosophy. And, I mean, you can see, how did we get so many Christian religions? The same thing. Martin Luther did it with the Catholic Church. So anyway, I do believe that there's a supreme being, you know, but I don't see him as I can't believe that how many billion people are on the planet that he hears my little prayers. You know, it was like that movie with Jim Carrey, remember, where he became God and
Bruce Almighty.
We're talking to his head all the time, and he got millions of emails. He said, "Stop!" That's
but my thing is, like, I'm a Christian, right?
Right.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not even a Christian. I believe in Christianity because I'm not a Christian, because as a Christian, you got to live your life as a Christian. And I don't live my life like a Christian. But I believe in Christianity. Okay. I don't push my religious beliefs. I don't even talk about it, to be honest.
Right.
I don't push it, and I don't push it on other people. I don't even push my political parties or bullshit. I don't post any of my beliefs on other people unless someone asks me. If someone asks me, Travis, what do you believe in, or what political party? Then you ask me, and now I will tell you. But I would never ever try to push my belief. That's why I do not. I mean, even on social media, I do not. People don't know who the fuck I'm going to vote for in this election. I mean, you can.
Well, I do.
Yeah, but listen, I mean,
hey, it's just you and me, Travis. You can tell me.
Richard, up until what, a month ago, I really didn't know who the fuck I was going to vote for. But
well, it was I mean,
oh my goodness,
you gotta admit, it's nice to see her and this Walsh guy that can run down the steps of an airplane. You know, they don't have to take baby steps like Trump and Biden were doing. You know, and all this stuff. And but no, I'm the same way. I don't you know, you can't talk about these deeper metaphysical and psychological and religious things with most people. You know,
you can't, because it would turn into an argument
and say, "Well, I'll pray for Jesus." You know,
it would turn into an argument. It would turn to an argument, or you can lose friendships or whatever by talking about that shit.
Oh yeah. Well, at this point in my life, most of my friends agree with me, or they're not my friends. No, I'm getting the
So,
point. I just had my best friend from college die, and he was just 69 going on 70. Can you believe that? But he was overweight. He had a triple bypass. He still smoked a pack a day. Then his wife had died a year ago. So I guess it's that old adage that when the wife goes, the husband just kind of has nothing to live for, you know. But it's hurting me because now I'm just, friends disappear from the face of the earth. It's kind of crazy.
Richard, my day job, so I'm a mortician, and I'm telling you right now that
that's right.
Yeah, so that saying is 100% true. When a wife dies, when I would say a man, once he's 60 and older, once his wife dies, he's usually right behind her, and he starts letting himself go. He starts becoming a hoarder. He stops shaving and bathing. It's just like a man gives up, especially if in an older age, if his wife died. Now, when her husband dies, she's back out getting tea time with her girlfriends and going shopping, and she lives whatever amount of years she's left.
Right.
Men, for some reason, like men just give up as soon as their wife dies.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I found Wendy, my wife, when I was 68. You know, she's 6 years younger. But I wasn't going to give up. I didn't want to die alone. You know, heck with that. You know. And I've got two friends that are like that. Well, one, the wife died, but they had no kids, and another guy who was an agent with me, lives up in northern Wisconsin. He's not gay, but he's happy there up in the woods by himself. He doesn't even have a dog or a cat. You know, I don't understand that. I'd have to have a dog there to at least be happy when I came home. Somebody knows I'm home, right?
Yes, someone come like start talking to myself or something.
Yeah, they say that psychologists say that if you cut yourself off totally from exposure to other human being and become a hermit, your IQ drops exponentially for every year you do that, because you're not interacting with other people and using all of your brain to get through the day. But that's why I don't criticize my friend up in the North Woods. He's happy. He's growing potatoes and everything. I don't know what he's doing up there. Anyway, let's go on to the slides.
Yes. Right? All right, let's do it.
Okay, so there's the father of American Gothic horror, P Lovecraft, right? Now I'm just going to go over a brief synopsis because I know a lot of your fans should. Oh, you can go to the next one. It's okay.
Good one.
Yeah. Because he was born August 29, 1890 and died in 1937. He had intestinal stomach cancer, didn't even know it until like 2 months before he died. And I guess you could say that people didn't go to the doctor back then, but I mean, they could have cured it if he had known about it, But anyway, he was famous for writing these Gothic cosmic horror things, or the Cthulhu mythos, we call it now. But all his works were published like in these Weird Tales magazines, starting about 1927 up until he died. So he died a pauper, and nobody really recognized his writing till the 70s when one guy did a real search on it. I'm sure, there were authors, fellow authors, that recognized it, and some intelligent horror fanatics that recognized him, but he never made, I don't know what he lived on, because all he did was these little magazine articles, but it was when he was a child, it was interesting. He had very strict parents, but it just says they were institutionalized. So I'm thinking maybe his father had some mental illness, and then he moved in with his grandmother. Okay. Now his problem was they used to call it melancholia, but now we'd say chronic depression. So from the time he was like 4 years old, all the way up through his life, he had chronic depression. So he wanted to be a scientist is what he wanted. And he made it through high school, but it took him 5 years because he had another bout of severe depression. Then he enrolled in Brown University, and 6 months later, it knocked him off his feet again. So he never could. I would say that because it wasn't treatable back then, he probably couldn't have ever held down a regular job. because it would just, writing is more of something you do and you get the juices flowing and it probably soothed his chronic depression. But there was 5 years in his life he just didn't do anything. I don't know what he and his wife lived on. But anyway, that's kind of a background. And I think everybody knows his famous stories, like, The Mouth of Madness that they made into a movie, The Shadow Out of Time, The Shadow over Innismouth, and the Dunwich Horror, right? Mm-hmm. But when he was a young man, he first got into Greek mythology because that was kind of fantasy and he could relate to that. But what really influenced his whole life was when he got a copy of 1001 Arabian Nights. That just got all his juices flowing, period. And they said, he reread that book countless times, even as an adult, And, well, let's get into the Necronomicon, okay? Let me get it over here. Now, I'm talking about H.P. Lovecraft's fictitious book. I hope everybody realizes by now there is no such book. But it was so popular. What happened was, Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho, right? He knew him. And he knew Robert E. Howard, the guy that created Conan the Barbarian. And he was still a recluse. He never really socialized, but they wrote tons of correspondence back and forth between each other, right? And what happened was, like, Ashton Clark Smith and these other guys started putting made-up things like the Necronomicon in their stories, too. So it kept popping up all over. So it got so popular, people would go to the library and ask the librarian if they could check out the Necronomicon. And, of course, the librarian laughed and said, there's no such book. It's something from his imagination. And then, a lot of people, what happened when he was a little kid, they told him there was no such thing as Santa Claus. So by the time he was 7 or 8, he realized, he said, well, then there's no such thing as God because I can't see him either, So he was a pragmatic atheist all his life, but he loved to write about these mystical, supernatural things, right? It just was his bailiwick, his forte, But we have to talk about, let me go to the next slide, would you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, his cosmicism. Now, what that means is he doesn't believe or didn't believe there was some great altruistic, loving, caring force in the universe. He thought we were not destined for magical, wonderful inheritance, that there was nothing benevolent out there, granting our wishes. He followed Nietzsche even, whose famous thing is God is dead. Of course, what he meant is society killed him off, with their scientific materialism, right? But he didn't believe in the permanence of the human race. He said we could do away with it any time because we're all such mixed up evil creatures. There doesn't have to be a Cthulhu out there, right? Or a Yog-Sothoth or any of that, But he didn't believe in, it was I guess you'd say it's a very pessimistic worldview, And you can kind of see that in his writings, right? But now a lot of people, and this really pisses me off as a writer, right? Because if you read Thomas Harris' Silence of the Lambs or Hannibal, right? Do you think that Thomas Harris is a serial killer cannibal? No. He's a fictional book writer, right? Mm-hmm. Any of these people that write the stuff, what's his name that's doing dragons and help me out here. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones guy. He really believes in any of this stuff. It's just fiction. But you can look all over the internet and people say, well, Lovecraft had to be a Rosicrucian. He had to be a Freemason. He must have been knee deep in the occult. And they've even gone so far to say is that he read Aleister Crowley and started corresponding with him and all that. It's all bullshit. He didn't believe in any of this stuff at all. His was a very pessimistic take on the world. You know, he didn't really believe in angels or demons or gods of any kind, right? So it just, that really irks me as a writer, though. Why don't they just say he had a wonderful imagination and a talent for fiction, you know? So now because he's so popular, they actually got his estate and they cataloged what was in his library, okay? He had, well, I'm going to go through them. The cult books he had was like Fraser's Golden Bough, which is a catalog of religion all the way from the caveman or Neanderthal all the way up into, you know, his time period, you know. And scholars use it all the time to show the assimilation and the beliefs and the similarity beliefs. But that's not a cult, right? The most occult book you could say had was the Malleus Maleficarum, which was the witch's hammer. It was a guide to how to recognize, torture, make a confession out of all these women that were burnt in the witch trials, you know. But that's not really a cult. It's counter a cult, right? Mm-hmm. And then they found that his Encyclopedia Britannica had all sorts of scribbling notes. So most of the stuff he gets is just like if you went on Wikipedia today and you got ideas for your book and you put them in there, right? The interesting thing is that as a boy, he had night terrors, right? He called them night gaunts. And in one of these, probably influenced by the Arabian Nights, he came up with this Arab called Abdul Azarad. Well, Abdul Azarad is the fundamental character of the Necronomicon. He's the mad Arab of Damascus who made pacts with the demons and supposedly wrote this magical black magic grimoire, but he was supposedly torn apart in the streets by the very demons he'd been working with, right? But if you know Robert Chambers, he wrote a book years before called The King in Yellow. And they've actually used that today. And like the most recent one I know is, True Detective, the first one with Matthew McConaughey. And remember, they kept calling him, they didn't call him the King in Yellow, they called him the Yellow King. But they took that right out of there. And this trope that, and then he put in there too, that if you read this play, you'll go mad. You'll be possessed and obsessed with demons. But that trope's been used millions of times now, you know, by every kind of author there is. I mean, there was a grade B horror movie a while ago where they had this curse film and they showed it at the drive-in and the mom and son were trying to rebuild the drive-in business. And of course, when they watched the movie, the whole place went to hell and everybody started killing each other. But that's just a trope and everybody uses it. Oh, and then the list of occult books that he put in there. Now he'll put in like The Greater Key of Solomon, but he'll just put the title as a book. He won't explain what's in it because he doesn't know what's in it, you know. He just uses it to add color to the story and put you in that kind of dark, mysterious mood, right? So, yeah, so this mad Arab was not even an Arabic name at all. Abdullah is, but not Al-Harad. It's just something that popped into his night gaunts, you know, but he used it, right? Okay. Now to this day, writers like Stephen King and Joyce Carol Oates say that he, Lovecraft, is the father of American Gothic horror of the unknown. Now, I don't know. Would you agree? What about Edgar Allan Poe? I think he should at least be mentioned in the same breath.
I agree.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know. I almost think Poe is a little better, you know.
But it's fascinating, Richard, because when I would say probably at least 50% of authors who I interview, I ask them where they get an inspiration from, and they always say H.P. Lovecraft. Like they say, you know, that my book is kind of Lovecraftian style. So, like even today, new authors get their inspiration from H.P. Lovecraft.
Well, like I said, King and Joyce Carol Oates, who you can't beat with a stick, really worshipped him. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, go to the next slide, would you? Okay, that's what I was saying. He had. Oh, and then The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's a short story, and it's very Lovecraftian. This guy goes in the woods, and he encounters, you know, the cloven-footed, hairy-legged, flute-playing god Pan of debauchery, lust, and wine, you know, and which we get our image of the modern-day devil from that Christianity created. You know, he just doesn't have the pitchfork and the tail.
Yeah.
But if you ever get a chance to read that, it just kind of gives you chills in the end. It's kind of like Lovecraft, where it's just kind of a haunting, unsettling terror, you know. And, of course, Machen was a member of the Golden Dawn, and so was Bram Stoker. And, Robert Shaw, the famous playwright, you know, along with, Florence Farr, who was like Angelina Jolie back in the day. She was an international film star. And, and of course, Yeats, the poet, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeats, and then Crowley, of course, came in and fucked it all up. Pardon my French. You know? Yeats, absolutely. Well, Crowley showed Yeats some of his poetry because Crowley thought he was the best poet on earth, right? And Yeats just went, interesting, walked away. So from that day on, Crowley absolutely hated his, you know, he expected him to just gush over his poetry, you know. But they always said in that one poem, what dark beast is this that crawls off to Bethlehem? He was referring to Aleister Crowley because he knew how mentally disturbed he was and misogynistic and narcissistic and actually a sociopath, you know. Not a psychopath, but a sociopath. Okay, next slide. There's the Mad Arab, Abdul Hazrat. And there's the book I was talking about by Chambers, The King in Yellow. And if you haven't looked at it, it's really good. It's kind of the same thing. It's not out and out bloody horror, but it just creeps up on you with these figures that you don't see their face or you get a glimpse of their face and etc. But it was the same trope that if you read it, you'll go mad, you know. So as far as I can see back, that's where it first started with Chambers. Okay, next slide. Okay, and of course they made modern films out of Lovecraft. This one was with, got brain farts tonight. Anyway, Sandra Dee is laying on the altar there. You know, the American teenage heartthrob that married Bobby Darin, right? And Dean Stockwell. Remember, if you remember back to the original Quantum Leap show, he was the guy that was controlling.
Yes.
I can't remember the actor's name. He's a good actor.
The actor name is Scott
Bakula or
Scott Bakula. Yes, Scott Bakula.
Yeah. But yeah, he's a great actor too. He's really good. And go to the next one. Yeah, and then we have The Color of Outer Space more recently with Nicolas Cage, you know. And, I haven't seen that new one, Daddy Longlegs, yet, but I understand he really chews the scenery to bits on that one. But
it's good.
Did you see it?
No, I hear it's great, though.
Yeah, I heard it's really good because he's kind of like the devil or possessed or something, you know, like that. And it's kind of a trope, just like from Tom Harrison Hannibal. It's a female FBI agent that's, you know, trying to take him down. And I don't know if she won or lost in the end, but got a feeling that she lost because, well, remember the old Hollywood movies, the bad guy always had to have his comeuppance and end up with something.
Yes.
But thank God they did away with that, you know. Now I mean, even the heroes, like those Bruce Willis movies, they're an ex-cop who had divorced, drunk, but they get the call to duty and they come back and kick butt, you know.
Yeah.
But, I love Nicolas Cage. I didn't like Renfield, though. Did you? That just came off.
I did not like Renfield. I actually did a review of Renfield on my channel. But, no, I didn't like Renfield. I'm a huge Nicolas Cage fan. Mm-hmm. Like, I love his action stuff, but he did an indie horror movie recently that I rave about all the time. It's called Mandy. It's just a beautiful fucking movie. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, and then he did one recently too, where he gets a ride from this guy in the car, and that would just kind of left me flat too. I can't think of the name of it, but he's an off the wall psychopath. The whole movie is just about the two of them. Two talking heads. But no, he's great. Yeah, I don't know what's with him. Do you notice that he's just churning out movies for these last 5-6 years? It's kind of like De Niro did for a while, and then he stopped. But I don't know if he just...
Well, I know Nicolas Cage got blackballed in Hollywood, and he was broke because he spent his money crazy. Yeah. And then so he was on a lot of low budget and indie stuff.
Right.
And then but he still has a huge fan base, and so he was on a lot of horror, like great indie horror films, and then they finally gave him the role, and he was in a role before Renfield, which was a really good movie, where he plays himself, and this cartel leader hires him to come and hang out with him. Such a great movie. It's hilarious. And then he got Renfield, but it seems like his career is kind of getting a resurgence.
Yeah, I loved him in Face Off with John Travolta.
Con Air, he was great. Snake Eyes, 8mm. 8mm is one of my favorite movies of all time.
No, I think he's a great actor. He just, I don't like some of these modern actors. I won't even mention the names. They're just kind of milquetoast, and they whisper all the time, and
Yep.
For a while, everybody was trying to be Brando and just mumble their dialogue all the time. But no, I mean, if you look at the great actors like him or Anthony Hopkins or Laurence Olivier, even they get violent. They pound their fists and they shout. They show real emotion. But these guys nowadays, I just, I can't. Who's the guy in these Dune movies? He just turns me off totally.
I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen.
All right, give me the next slide, please.
Yep.
So now we're going to go into Simon and the Simon Necrocon. Now, we got to go back. We got to go back in a Wayback Machine, which was used to be Sherman and Peabody would do on the Bullwinkle Show. I know it's before your time, but that's what they would do. They call it the Wayback Machine. So we got to go back to like 1968 through 1980 in Brooklyn, New York, because that's where Lavinda's from, and that was the birthplace of the Necronomicon. Okay, but it was a weird summer. So in '72, this guy Herman Slater and his lover, he was gay, but they were real characters. I'll get into that. They opened what was called the Warlock Shop in Brooklyn. It was like an occult shop, right? But it was very tiny, etc. But he started making so much money. He said, we got to cash in on this, get a bigger store, and move to Manhattan. So they moved the whole store to Chelsea, which is kind of, that days was like Soho would be now in Greenwich Village, kind of avant-garde. But okay, that was in '72. Okay, in '68, Rosemary's Baby came out. Okay, then in '73, The Exorcist came out. Right, and then in '76 through '77, it was the Summer of Sam. Right, the son of Sam murders. Yeah, son of Berkowitz. Right. So you had all this stuff going on in Brooklyn and New York. It was kind of eerie and dark, right? And can you go to the next slide?
Sure can.
Yeah, there's a theory that Berkowitz had said. First he acted alone, then he did a long interview with a reporter, said, well, no, he was part of a cult. He only did one of the murders, and other members of the cult did it, right? Mm-hmm. And you had this thing called the Process Church, was an offshoot of OTO and Scientology in San Francisco. But it first came over from England, but they were like really off the wall. They were too off the wall for Scientology and the OTO. Yeah, the OTO is the Ordo Templi Orientis. It was founded by, well, sort of by Aleister Crowley, and now they call it Thelema, and they practically worship Aleister Crowley. You know. Anyway, go to the next slide. So this guy, if you haven't read the book, it's really good. Murray Terry, he got into, there's a documentary on Netflix. He got obsessed with the Son of Sam thing to the point where he was a good reporter, but that's all he thought about day and night, day and night, day and night. And he became a belief that it was the process church. And there's something to this because there's a park in Yonkers, you know, right across from Brooklyn. It's kind of like a not well-used park. And they found in these like cement tunnels and stuff that you have in a park, you know, a whole bunch of satanic symbols. But the worst thing they found was these gutted and ritualistically killed German shepherds. Well, remember who son of Berkowitz said was telling him to do these things? A black German shepherd. And that's where the Son of Sam came in, right? But the weird thing about poor Terry Murray was he was trying to get concrete proof, you know. And there's a whole documentary out there, and there's these guys that were brothers that were in Brooklyn too, and then they went out to, I forget where, Nebraska or Ohio or somewhere, and strange things started happening there with ritual murder and occults and stuff, but nobody could ever tie the two together except Murray Terry. But he died mysteriously. He was at a motel. He was going to meet a IRS agent for some reason who said he had absolute proof to help him connect the dots. And he died mysteriously during daylight hours in a car crash against a tree. And, you know, just the whole thing is a book in itself, you know. And then, well, he actually kind of tied Manson with it too, because people say that Manson was a member of the Process Church out in California too. And like I said, they were too off the wall for Scientology and Crowley and everything. So they were really far out there, right? Okay, next slide. Yeah, so I said Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, and The Omen too. All these, it kind of was the total resurgence of demonic horror, you know, with those three movies. And I mean, The Exorcist just, oh God, you know, people were lined up for blocks and they were fainting in the theater, and the Catholic Church loved it because people started going back to church. You know why they always use Catholics in these exorcist movies?
Why is that?
Because we have the ritual, the robes and the incense and the crucifix and the holy water. I mean, how would you doing an exorcist just reading from a Bible would be not very dramatically.
Not fun, no.
But the original story that he blatantly based it on was a Protestant minister, and it was a boy. But he ended up calling in a Catholic priest because he wasn't getting anywhere. So what do you think about demon possession? Do you believe in that?
Demon possessions. I don't know if I believe in that, right? Yeah. I believe in spirits. I believe in ghosts. I believe in all that good shit. Demon possessions, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I think it's a mental illness, and that the rite of exorcism can be like a placebo mentally. If you tell them the demon's gone and everything. Because when I worked for CPS, Children Protective Services in Chicago, it was like, what year was that? It was the 90s. But remember in the 80s, you had the Satanic Panic, where they said the judges and the police, and there were Satanists in every little town and big city and under your bed and everything. Well, I was going to say, I would meet these women who said they were abused and said they had multiple personality disorder, you know? And, you know, my wife's got 2 PhDs in psychology. She doesn't even believe there is such a thing. Because the therapist, it's like if you go to somebody you want to do a past life regression, just saying you want to do that, it's already put it in your head that that's what you want to experience, whether it's real or not. And if I take you back to the womb and then I say, now what do you see? Now what do you see? That, you know, they want a past life, so they'll start telling. And if they keep going back, the therapist will say, where did we leave off last time? And you notice they're never a skull remade or a garbage collector, right? They're always, you know, handmaiden to the queen or patcher, or they're a warrior or a great physician or something. Always some grandiose thing.
Something honorable. Something honorable.
Honorable, yeah. So I think exorcism the same way. But I do have to say, even though I said I was agnostic, when I had a real night terror, what they call it, one night, where your body won't move, but your brain wakes up and you just feel paralyzed. I started saying Hail Marys and Our Fathers and Glory Bees and praying to Jesus that I could wake up, because it was, I hope you never have one, but I was exhausted. And well, they think that's what the alien abduction thing is, because normally your body and your brain wake up at the same time, right? But in certain cases, your brain works up first and your body's still limp and immobile. It hasn't sent a signal for the body to wake up, you know? And it was frightening, because I couldn't move. It was like I was strapped down to the bed, and I know my eyes were closed, but I could see the room. And, well, I've heard that this is common. It's like a buzzing sound. It's like it goes zoop, zoop, zoop over your body, you know? And that's terrifying. And then most people sense some sort of a dark, unseen presence in the room. And mine was like kind of the left corner of the room. And thank God, I just prayed and willed myself to wake up. But I had to get up and pour myself a drink. It was that scary. But they're thinking that's what alien abduction is too. But they've transplanted aliens on it instead of demons. Well, that's the old story of the succubus and incubus, right? You have a night visitor, and they sap the guy's vital fluids, you know, or women, like, well, little thing, I was looking up the legend of King Solomon, and the legend is that one of his journeyman laborers came to him and said, Solomon, I'm possessed by demons. And he said, how do you know? He says, well, he's stealing my food and my wages, and at night he sucks my thumb. Well, come on, what is he talking about there, right? But think about it was, whatever BC, maybe they didn't understand that nocturnal emissions were just a physiological thing, So I'm thinking that's why they came up with the succubus, because, guys didn't want to tell their wives that they were, doing that, And when my mom was in nursing school, she went to a Catholic nursing home, the nuns would say, now, if you're going to change their beds, you'll notice these boys are naughty, and sometimes they blow their nose in the middle of the sheets. My mom was only like 21. She said, we knew better than that. Anyway, next slide. Yeah, I love that story, but it's true.
All right. So, Richard, we're going to wrap up the first part of this 2-part episode. All right, listen, if you want to definitely tune in tomorrow when we're going to have part 2 of this episode. If it's your first time, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. All right, Richard, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place.
Yeah, I'll tell you the mystery of Peter Levinda, the real author of the Necronobicon.
Yes, we're going to get deep into it. So we'll see you guys.